In the peaceful town of Troy, Ohio, a terrifying discovery shook the community to its core. Three young men stumbled upon something that would haunt them for years. As they walked along Greenlee Road, one of them noticed an unusual sight, a unique buckskin poncho. They had no idea that this seemingly ordinary piece of clothing would uncover a mystery that lasted nearly 4 decades. Greg Bridenbaugh, one of the young men, called out to his friend Neil Hoffman to check out the strange coat. As Hoffman got closer, he was shocked. He turned to Bridenbaugh, his voice shaking. "Oh my God, there's a woman in that coat." The scene was unbelievable. A young woman lay curled up, her body tossed aside like trash. She had no shoes or socks on, which made the discovery even more disturbing. No one knew it then, but this moment would start a case that would confuse investigators for years.
Well, they still don't know who beat and strangled her to death in 1981. Local 12's Deborah Dixon tells us about the technology that was used to identify her after all these years.
There was something about her freckled face and those pigtails that attracted online sleuths who called the young murder victim Buckskin Girl.
The story of the Buckskin Girl was about to unfold, capturing the nation's attention and leaving a lasting impact on the world of criminal investigation. As the shock of the discovery wore off, the justice system started to take action. The local police quickly arrived at the scene, their faces serious as they looked around. The young woman's body was carefully taken to the coroner's office, where a thorough examination would hopefully explain what had happened to her. The autopsy, done on the same day she was found, revealed a horrifying story about her last moments. The medical examiner's findings showed a violent end. The young woman had been badly hurt on her head and neck before being strangled. It was estimated that she died about 48 hours before her body was found, making the investigation even more urgent. As the coroner examined her body further, more details came to light. The woman was thought to be between 18 and 26 years old, standing at around 5'4" to 5'6", and weighing 125 to 130 pounds. Her reddish-brown hair, parted in the middle and braided into pigtails, seemed to show a carefree spirit. Her light brown eyes and freckles suggested a youthful energy, now sadly gone. One strange detail stood out. Her nose was described as very pointed, a feature that investigators hoped might help them identify her. Her skin suggested she had spent a lot of time outdoors in the weeks or months before she died, perhaps hinting at her lifestyle or job. Despite the tragic circumstances, there were signs that this young woman had taken care of herself. Her teeth were in good condition, with all her wisdom teeth present and only one porcelain crown on her upper right incisor. This dental work would later be very important in the investigation. When the investigators examined her clothes, they'd found no identification. She wore blue bell-bottom Wrangler jeans, a brown turtleneck pullover sweater with an orange crisscross design, and a white brassiere. But it was the unique deerskin poncho with purple lining that would soon give her the nickname that would last for decades, Buckskin Girl. The lack of shoes or socks on her feet raised questions. Had she been forced to take them off, or had they been taken after she died? These were just a few of the many questions that started to swirl in the minds of the detectives working on the case. With the autopsy finished, investigators turned their attention to identifying the young woman. They carefully collected her fingerprints and dental information, hoping these would quickly match a missing persons report. However, their hopes were quickly dashed. The fingerprints didn't match anything in any database, suggesting she had no previous interactions with law enforcement. Not giving up, the police decided to ask the public for help. On April 28, 1981, just 4 days after the discovery, a composite drawing of the young woman's face was released to local newspapers and broadcast on television networks. The media exposure generated a lot of activity, with approximately 200 leads pouring in. Detectives worked tirelessly, following up on each tip, but frustratingly, all led to dead ends. The case of the Buckskin Girl, a name coined due to her distinctive jacket, began to captivate the local community. Theories started to circulate. Some speculated she might have been a teenage runaway, while others wondered if she could have fallen victim to a dangerous individual known to have harmed several women in the region during that time. However, certain aspects of the case didn't quite fit these theories. The young woman's high level of personal hygiene suggested she hadn't been living on the streets. Moreover, there were no signs of any inappropriate physical contact, making it unlikely she had been involved in high-risk activities. The investigators began to suspect that the reason for her remaining unidentified might be that she had met her unfortunate end far from her hometown. This theory was supported by the location where she was found, just 5 miles from Interstate 75, making it a convenient spot for someone traveling through the area to make a quick stop. The clean state of her bare feet further reinforced this idea. If she had walked to the spot where she was found, her feet would likely have shown signs of dirt or wear. This led investigators to believe she had been brought to that location after her passing, rather than meeting her end there. Police and other officials continued to work on the case, preserving her clothing and other physical evidence recovered from the scene. They even managed to preserve a sample of her blood, a decision that would prove crucial in the years to come. As the years went by, the case of the Buckskin girl continued to puzzle investigators. They explored different theories about her background and lifestyle. Some thought she might have been a runaway teenager or maybe a child from the foster care system. Others guessed she could have been a wanderer, although her good personal hygiene seemed to disagree with this idea. The place where she was found, near a town road instead of a highway, made it unlikely that she had been traveling for a long time. The missing footwear at the scene led some detectives to think that something unfortunate had happened with a partner. In 2016, a breakthrough happened with isotope analysis done on the young woman's hair and fingernails. This scientific technique revealed an interesting detail. She had spent about 4 months in areas in the southwestern or southeastern United States before she died. This new information sparked fresh interest in the case, as it gave them a potential geographic area to focus the investigation. Further analysis using forensic palynology, the study of pollen and spores, suggested she had either come from or spent a lot of time in the northeastern United States or Canada in the year before she died. This conflicting information only deepened the mystery around her identity and movements. In 2001, the Miami Valley Regional Crime Laboratory was able to create a DNA profile of the Buckskin girl. This important piece of evidence was later added to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, NAMIS, database in 2008, making her genetic information available to law enforcement agencies across the country. This DNA profile proved very valuable, allowing investigators to definitely rule out 226 missing teenage girls and young women as potential matches. In 2009, a mitochondrial DNA sample was submitted to the FBI for inclusion in the Combined DNA Index System, COBIS, further expanding the search for her identity. The following year, Dr. Elizabeth Murray, a forensic anthropologist and biology professor based in Cincinnati, took on the case management of the Buckskin girl through NAMIS. Dr. Murray's dedication to the case would be very important in the years to come. In April 2016, to try to generate new leads, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released 2 updated forensic facial reconstructions of the young woman. These images, showing her both with and without her signature braided pigtails, were widely shared online. While initially these efforts didn't produce significant leads, they kept the case in the public eye and showed the ongoing commitment to solving this decades-old mystery. In 2017, a major breakthrough in DNA technology appeared, offering a glimmer of hope for cold cases like the Buckskin girls. This new method, called genetic genealogy, combined DNA analysis with traditional genealogical research. Dr. Murray, still actively working on the case, reached out to a newly formed organization called the DNA Doe Project. The DNA Doe Project, a non-profit organization dedicated to identifying Jane and John Does through genetic genealogy, took on the challenge. They worked tirelessly, comparing the Buckskin girl's DNA profile to those in public genetic databases. Their efforts paid off when they successfully matched her DNA to a sample submitted by a first cousin. This breakthrough led to a moment investigators had been waiting for nearly 4 decades. On April 9, 2018, the Miami Valley Regional Crime Laboratory made a stunning announcement. They had finally identified the buckskin girl. She was 21-year-old Marcia Lenore King from Little Rock, Arkansas. The revelation of Marcia's identity brought mixed feelings. While it provided closure to a long-standing mystery, it also opened up new questions. Marcia had last been seen by her family in 1980, but she had never been officially reported as a missing person. Her family, it turned out, had continued to search for her all those years, hoping that she might one day return home. As more details about Marcia's life emerged, investigators learned that she had often used hitchhiking as a means of transportation, confirming their long-held theories. They also discovered that Marcia had connections to both Pittsburgh and Louisville, Kentucky, providing new avenues for investigation into her final days. The identification of Marcia King marked a significant milestone in the case, but it was far from the end. Miami County Sheriff Steve Lord, addressing the media, emphasized that the investigation into Marcia's passing was ongoing. The focus now shifted to tracing Marcia's movements in the last month of her life, particularly her time in Pittsburgh and Louisville. In July 2018, the Miami County Sheriff's Office announced a significant development. They had received new information about Marcia's whereabouts shortly before she was found. Eyewitness accounts placed Marcia in Louisville, Kentucky, about 2 weeks before she was found. This crucial piece of information gave investigators a more precise timeline of her movements. Additionally, 6 eyewitnesses confirmed sightings of Marcia in Arkansas around the same time, suggesting she had been traveling a lot in her final days. Authorities began to explore the possibility that Marcia's reason for traveling to Ohio might have been connected to her suspected involvement with a religious organization known as the Way. This potential connection opened up new avenues of inquiry and raised questions about the influence this group might have had on Marcia's life and her tragic end. In February 2020, the Miami County Sheriff's Office announced another breakthrough. They had managed to further reconstruct Marcia's whereabouts and relationships in the 2 weeks leading up to her passing. This new information brought them closer to understanding the circumstances surrounding her final days. Moreover, advancements in DNA technology offered a new glimmer of hope. It became possible to retrieve nuclear DNA samples from hair samples, even those missing the root. This development led investigators to submit hair samples found at the original scene to a renowned paleogeneticist in California. The hope was that these samples might yield a DNA profile of either the person responsible for Marcia's passing or someone she had been in contact with very shortly before. Miami County Sheriff Dave Duchok expressed cautious optimism about these developments, stating, "We always have hopes to bring justice for those who have been physically harmed and their families. We never have, nor will we ever forget, and will continually work the case, and as new technologies are developed, we'll review our evidence to learn if it is worth resubmitting." On July 20, 2018, a touching memorial service was held for Marcia at a chapel in Troy, Ohio. The service, led by Reverend Gregory Simmons, drew over 50 local residents, showing how deeply Marcia's story had touched the community. During this somber occasion, Marcia's family unveiled a new headstone, replacing the simple Jane Doe marker with one bearing her true name. Marcia's stepmother, Cindy Sossaman, spoke at the service, offering a glimpse into the young woman's personality. She described Marcia as a very trusting individual, a trait that may have made her vulnerable. Addressing the gathered crowd, Cindy expressed profound gratitude. "Words don't describe the feelings we have for all of you, how you have loved her and taken her in your arms." The service was a bittersweet moment for Marcia's family. They had found closure in knowing her fate, but it came with the heartbreaking realization that several family members had passed away before Marcia's identification. Her father, John Wesley Sossaman, had died just 3 months before she was identified. Her brother, Daniel King, and half-brother, Jonathan Sossaman, had also passed away, never knowing what had become of Marcia. As the community of Troy and Marcia's family continued to honor her memory, investigators pressed on, driven by the hope of one day bringing full closure to the case. The mystery of what exactly happened to Marcia in her final days remained unsolved, but the revelation of her identity had brought her story out of the shadows and into the light of day.